Your salary raise is making you poorer, the math no one shows you. Sarah gets a 6% raise, best raise she's had in 4 years. She goes home, does a little mental math, thinks about maybe finally taking that trip to Portugal. 3 months later, she has less money in her checking account than before the raise. Dave gets promoted, title upgrade, 11% bump, the whole thing. 2 years later, he's working harder than he ever has, more stressed, and somehow feels further behind on every financial goal he set in his 30s. Linda gets a cost of living adjustment every year like clockwork. Her employer is proud of it, mentions it in the company newsletter. She's 52, has $190,000 saved, and her financial advisor recently told her she needs at least $1.4 million to retire comfortably. The math doesn't work, and she can't figure out why, because she's never missed a raise in 25 years. Here's the pattern. They all believe the same thing, that a raise is a win, that more income means more progress, that the number going up on the paycheck means the number going up in their life. It doesn't. Not automatically. Not the way most people think. There's a mechanism, a set of overlapping systems quietly swallowing raises whole, and most people never even see it happening. Here's what we're actually doing today. I'm going to break down the 4 different forces that eat your raise before it ever reaches your financial life. We're going to run the math on what a 6% raise actually delivers in real purchasing power, and the number is going to make you angry, especially if you've been feeling like you're working harder every year but getting nowhere. I'll explain why bracket creep is a hidden tax that your employer never mentions in the offer letter. I'll show you how the S&P 500 has outpaced wage growth by almost 3-to-1 over the last 40 years, and what that really means for anyone building wealth on a salary. And then we're going to talk about the one thing that actually breaks the cycle, because I'm not here to just explain the trap. I'm here to show you the exit. This isn't motivational content. It's mechanical. It's math. And if you understand the math, you can actually do something about it. If you're someone who's done everything right, saved, worked hard, taken the promotions, but still feels like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, subscribe and like this video. It will help more than you think. There's an escalator in almost every major airport. You've been on one. You step on, face forward, and the stairs move you up automatically. You don't have to work. Now imagine the exact same escalator, but it's going down. You're walking up the steps as fast as you comfortably can. You're moving, you feel like you're making progress, but the escalator is descending faster than your legs are climbing. From a distance, someone watching you looks confused. You're working hard, you're stepping, but you're ending up lower than where you started. That's what's happening to most people every time they get a raise. The paycheck number goes up. The escalator underneath, inflation, taxes, lifestyle drag, asset price acceleration, is moving in the opposite direction faster than the raise is climbing. You feel the effort, you don't feel the descent, not until you check the numbers. And most people never check the numbers. That escalator metaphor is going to follow us through this entire video, because the solution isn't to walk faster, it's to understand exactly how fast the escalator is going down and then step off it entirely. Let's start with the one everyone thinks they understand, but almost nobody does correctly: inflation. In 1974, the United States had an inflation rate of 11.1%. Workers across the country fought hard for raises. Unions went to the mat. People celebrated getting a 10% bump. And here's what almost nobody understood at the time. If inflation is 11% and you got a 10% raise, you just took a pay cut. Not a big one, but a pay cut, a real pay cut. The dollar amount on your paycheck is higher. Your actual standard of living went backward. This isn't ancient history. This is one of the most important lessons in economic psychology of the 20th century. President Nixon tried to solve it by literally making inflation illegal, instituting wage and price controls in 1971, freezing wages, freezing prices. It worked for about 90 days. Then the economy developed workarounds, shortages started appearing, and the controls collapsed, because you can't legislate purchasing power. The numbers are just math. Now fast forward to 2022. Inflation hit 9.1% in June, the highest rate since 1981. Wages were growing, Companies were handing out raises like confetti because the labor market was tight. Average wage growth that year was around 5 to 5.5%. And for most people, that felt like real progress. It wasn't. In real terms, meaning after adjusting for what your money could actually buy, most workers took a pay cut of 3 to 4% in 2022. 3 consecutive years of above-average raises and below-average purchasing power. The escalator won. Here's the thing about inflation that's different from how most people frame it. You're taught to think of inflation as prices going up, but inflation is really the purchasing power of your money going down. That's not a semantic difference, it's a completely different mental model. Prices aren't going up in some abstract way, your dollar is going down. Every dollar you hold, every dollar in your savings account, every dollar in your paycheck, all of them shrink in real value every time inflation runs above zero. Now stack that on a raise, and here's what you actually get. Let me give you the numbers. Sarah makes $65,000 a year. She gets a 6% raise. New salary, $68,900. On paper, she gained $3,900 a year. That's $325 a month. That feels real. That feels like progress. But in 2024 and 2025, the Consumer Price Index, the basket of goods and services the average person actually buys, was running at roughly 3.2 to 3.5%. Let's call it 3.3% because that's the kind of precision that actually matters here. In real terms, the purchasing power of her original $65,000 needs to grow by $2,145 just to stay flat, not to get ahead, just to stay even. So of her $6,900 raise, $2,145 is already spoken for by inflation before she ever touches it. That leaves $1,755 in real gain, not $3,900, not $325 a month, $146 a month in actual new purchasing power, and we haven't touched taxes yet. Here's where the escalator picks up speed. The United States federal income tax system is progressive. You probably know this. But here's what most people miss. When you get a raise, some of that raise, specifically the portion that pushes you into a higher bracket, gets taxed at a higher marginal rate. This is called bracket creep. And while the IRS does adjust brackets annually for inflation, those adjustments often lag behind actual wage gains, especially when you're getting performance-based raises or promotions. Sarah's raise pushes a portion of her income from the 22% bracket into the 24% bracket, just a few $1,000s, but those dollars aren't taxed at her effective rate. They're taxed at 24 cents on every dollar. Every dollar of her raise that crossed the bracket line, she lost 24 cents immediately. Before state income taxes, which in a high-tax state like California or New York adds another 9 to 13% on top. In a mid-tier state, another 4 to 6%. Then payroll taxes, Social Security and Medicare take another 7.65% of wages below the Social Security wage cap. Added together in a typical scenario, and a marginal dollar of raise in the $65,000 to $75,000 income range can face an effective marginal tax rate of 35 to 43% depending on where you live. Sarah's $3,900 raise, after the inflation maintenance cost, she had $1,755 left. Now apply a blended marginal tax rate of 37% on that gain. She loses $649. She's down to $1,106 in genuine after-tax, after-inflation gain. For a full year of work, that's $92 a month, not $325, $92. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, okay, but $92 is still positive. She's still ahead. She's still winning. Fair. Except we're not done. Here's the part nobody talks about, the hidden paycheck deductions that grow when your income grows. Health insurance premiums. If Sarah's employer offers tiered insurance where higher earners contribute more, a raise can trigger a premium reclassification. In many corporate benefit systems, moving from the $60,000 to $69,999 band to the $70,000 plus band bumps your monthly premium contribution by $30 to $60 a month. Not dramatic, but now Sarah's real gain is $92 minus $45 a month in premium increase. She's at $47 a month. $47. That's one dinner out. If she lives in a major metro area where parking, transit, or work-related costs increase proportionally with seniority and responsibility, she might actually be losing ground by the end of the first year. Here's what makes this worse. This isn't just a math problem, it's a psychological one. Because Sarah felt the raise, she celebrated it. She mentally upgraded her sense of where she stands. And now, 6 months later, when her checking account doesn't reflect the narrative she told herself, she doesn't blame the tax system or the CPI. She blames herself. I must have spent too much. I must have missed something. She audits her budget, cuts the gym membership, skips the Portugal trip. She works harder in year 2, hoping that next raise will finally move the needle. And the escalator keeps going down. Now, let me tell you about Dave. Dave is 42. He's been in sales management for 15 years. Good career. Makes $95,000 base plus variable comp that usually lands him around $115,000 to $125,000 a year all in. He got promoted 2 years ago. New title, new territory, new team. Base salary jumped from $88,000 to $107,000. Everyone congratulated him. His LinkedIn was blowing up. Here's his actual financial picture. 2 years after the promotion, his 401k balance has grown, but slowly. He has $210,000 in there, which sounds decent, until you realize he's been contributing since he was 27. That's 15 years of contributions and market returns on an income that's never been small. At a 7% average annual return from age 27, consistently maxing out contributions at the IRS limit every year, he should have north of $400,000. He doesn't, because he didn't consistently max contributions, because when he got promoted, his spending grew faster than his income. New car, bigger apartment, because the title felt like it deserved it, upgraded gym, fancier dinners, not reckless spending. The kind of spending that seems completely proportional when your paycheck is bigger. But every single one of those upgrades is a new permanent escalator, not a one-time cost, a repeating, compounding, annually inflating cost. His lifestyle upgraded faster than his net worth. This is what economists call lifestyle inflation. And it's not a moral failure. It's built into human psychology. Our brains are wired for social comparison and status signaling. When income goes up, the brain immediately maps that income to its social reference group. What do people who earn this much drive, live in, eat, wear? And it begins to feel wrong not to conform. There's a guy I know who made it to $200,000 in his late 30s. He spent 5 years living paycheck to paycheck because he felt like $200,000 earners drive a certain kind of car, live in a certain neighborhood, take a certain kind of vacation. He was right. They do. And they also save at a rate commensurate with how fast the escalator moves at that income level. Nobody told him the escalator moves faster as you earn more, not slower. Here's the math that should genuinely unsettle you. Dave's $19,000 raise from $88K to $107K looks like a 21.6% increase. In terms of actual behavioral impact, here's what happened. After tax, his take-home on that extra $19,000 was roughly $11,000 annually, because his marginal rate on that increment was about 42% between federal, state, and payroll taxes. His new car payment is $650 a month. That's $7,800 a year. After taxes, his raise buys the car and almost nothing else. He got a 21% raise and bought himself a car note. He's not richer. He's committed future income to a depreciating asset he now has to maintain, insure, and eventually replace. And the car payment, unlike the raise, doesn't have a ceiling. It doesn't adjust for inflation. It just sits there every month, whether he gets another raise or not. Let me show you the math on the bigger picture, because this is where the escalator analogy becomes devastating. Since 1980, the S&P 500, a broad index of large American companies, has returned an average of roughly 10.5 to 11% annually, including dividends. Over the same period, average real wage growth for American workers has been approximately 1 to 1.5% per year after inflation. Let's call it 1.2%. Run that forward 40 years. A dollar invested in the S&P 500 in 1980 turned into approximately $65 to $70. A dollar of wage income in 1980, in real purchasing power terms, grew to about $1.60. The gap isn't 10%. It isn't 50%. It's more than 40 times. People who own stocks got 40 times richer per dollar than people who relied solely on wages. This isn't about rich versus poor. This is about asset owners versus labor sellers. And the brutal truth is, if you're only building wealth through salary increases, you're losing the wealth game by default. The escalator of wages goes up slightly. The escalator of assets goes up dramatically. If you're not invested, you're not even in the same building. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most people know they should invest. Most people have a 401k. They contribute something. But here's the distribution reality. The median 401k balance for Americans aged 35 to 44 is around $45,000 to $60,000, depending on the source. For 45 to 54-year-olds, it's around $90,000 to $100,000. Compare that to what those numbers should be if those workers had maximized contributions from their mid-20s and earned even a modest 7% return. The gap is enormous. The average person is participating in the market, but only at a fraction of the rate that would actually move their financial life. Meanwhile, the top 10% of Americans own roughly 93% of all stocks. The bottom 50% own less than 1%. When the market runs, when the asset escalator surges 20% in a year, that wealth concentration means the gains flow almost entirely to people who were already wealthy. When wages grow 3.5% that same year, everyone who's working gets a slice. But 3.5% wages versus 20% market? That's not a race. That's a different sport entirely. But you might be thinking, Tom, I don't have extra money to invest. Every raise I get goes somewhere. That's my point exactly. It goes somewhere because you let it go somewhere. The machine is designed to absorb it. Taxes, inflation, lifestyle creep. Every structural force in the economy is optimized to capture your raise before you can deploy it as capital. The system isn't rigged in the conspiracy sense, it's rigged in the incentive structure sense. Landlords raise rent when wages go up, because they can. Retailers expand premium product lines when incomes grow, because people buy them. The IRS captures more at higher marginal rates because that's how progressive taxation works. None of these actors are villains. They're all responding to incentives. But the cumulative effect is that money moves through wage earners and toward asset owners. And it does it through mechanisms that feel normal, even deserved. The raise feels like a win. The escalator beneath it is just the economy doing what it always does. Let me show you the math on the bigger picture, because this is where the escalator analogy becomes devastating. Her name is Jess. She's 38 now. At 27, she was earning $54,000 as a project coordinator at a mid-sized tech firm. Every year she got a raise, sometimes 3%, sometimes 5%. She decided, after reading a few things that changed her mind about money, to treat every raise as invisible. Not to herself, she knew about it, but invisible to her lifestyle. Every time her base salary went up, she increased her 401k contribution by the exact same dollar amount. If she got a $3,000 raise, her annual 401k contribution went up $3,000. Her take-home pay barely changed. Her lifestyle didn't upgrade. She kept driving the same car, she kept the same apartment until she had enough for a down payment on a house. From the outside, it looked like she was barely getting ahead. From the inside, she was stacking capital. By the time she was 36, 9 years into this plan, she had $318,000 in her 401k, $84,000 in a taxable brokerage account, and owned a condo outright after rolling equity from her first property. Her salary over that period had grown from $54,000 to $81,000. That's a 50% nominal increase, but her net worth had grown from essentially zero to over $500,000. Because she had captured the raises before the escalator could eat them, she had been walking up, the escalator was trying to take her down. But instead of just walking, she was taking a side staircase the escalator couldn't touch. The investment accounts, the capital base, the asset ownership. The escalator doesn't have access to that staircase. Only she does. Now, let me address the thing that's probably already running in the back of your head. I get it conceptually, but I don't have the margin. My raise doesn't leave enough to invest. Let's talk about that honestly, because for some people that's real. If you're making $45,000 in a city with an $1,800 rent, yes, the math is brutal and this conversation looks different. But for most people earning $65,000, $80,000, $100,000 and above, the sensation of not having margin is a product of the lifestyle escalator, not the income. Here's how to test that. Go look at your spending from 2 years ago versus today. Same income, inflation adjusted. Did your spending grow faster than your income? For most people above $60,000, the answer is yes. That's the escalator. That's not necessity. That's the machine doing its job. The other objection I hear constantly is this. My income is too volatile. I'm a freelancer. I'm in commission sales. I can't plan around unpredictable income. I actually think this argument is backwards. Volatile income is the best argument for automating investment, not against it. Because if you only invest what's left after spending, and your spending grows with your income, volatile income means you never invest at the top. You always wait until you feel safe. And safety arrives when you've already spent the margin. Automating a fixed percentage, even 10%, even 8% off the top before you can spend it solves this completely. You're not waiting to feel wealthy enough to invest. You're investing as the definition of your own wealth-building process. Let me get into the action steps because this is where the shift actually happens. Action step 1. Do the real raise math tonight, not the headline number, the actual after-tax, after-inflation, after-hidden deduction, real dollar gain. Take your raise as an annual number. Subtract your effective marginal tax rate from that increment, not your average rate, your marginal rate on the new dollars. Then subtract 3.3% of your full current salary to account for inflation maintenance. That's what you're actually getting. If the number that's left is less than you thought, congratulations, you now see the escalator. You can't fix something you haven't measured. Action step 2. Implement a raise redirect before it hits your lifestyle. The moment a raise takes effect, increase your 401k or IRA contribution by at least half of the net take-home gain. If your raise adds $200 a month to your paycheck, put $100 of it into your retirement account the same pay cycle. Your lifestyle gets the other $100. That's the reward. But the capital base grows faster than your spending. You're walking up the escalator and building a parallel staircase at the same time. Do this consistently over 10 years and the compounding effect is so dramatic it starts to look implausible. It isn't. It's just math that most people never start. Action step 3. Audit your fixed monthly costs every 12 months. Fixed costs are the most dangerous part of the lifestyle escalator because they're invisible. Your car payment, your streaming subscriptions, your gym membership, your insurance premiums, your rent, these all want to grow with your income. Landlords know when the local job market pays more. Car dealers know what your monthly payment tolerance is. Every fixed cost provider in your life is trying to capture the escalator gain before you can. Audit every recurring charge once a year. Ask the question, if my income dropped 20% tomorrow, which of these would I cut first? The answers reveal where your real priorities are. Then eliminate the ones that don't survive that test, even if you can technically afford them. That margin goes to capital. Action step 4. Build what I call a bracket cushion. If you near the top of a tax bracket, say your income is within $8,000 to $10,000 of the next tax bracket threshold, max out every pre-tax vehicle available to you before the raise pushes you across. Traditional 401k contributions reduce your taxable income dollar for dollar. If you're facing a bracket jump and you can direct $5,000 of your raise into pre-tax retirement accounts, you potentially stay in the lower bracket and your effective marginal rate on the raise drops dramatically. This is completely legal. It's not a loophole. It's literally what the accounts are designed for. Most people don't do this because nobody explains it plainly. Now you know. Action step 5. Restructure your reference point. This is the psychological one, and it's the hardest. Your brain is constantly comparing your lifestyle to a reference group. When you get a raise, it looks for evidence to update that group upward. This is the engine of lifestyle inflation. The deliberate intervention is to choose a reference group that lags your income by 5 to 10 years. Behave like you earn slightly less than you do. Consume at the level of someone 2 salary grades below you. This sounds ascetic. It's not. It's just choosing which escalator you're riding. Most people let the lifestyle escalator carry them automatically. The deliberately wealthy choose to step off the lifestyle escalator and ride the asset escalator instead. The lifestyle escalator feels good in real time and leaves you poor. The asset escalator feels like nothing is happening for years, and then suddenly everything is happening. Here's the closing thought on all of this. There was a moment in American economic history that changed the game, and almost nobody noticed it in real time. In 1982, right in the middle of a brutal recession, the IRS finalized the rules around a new financial instrument called the 401k, a retirement savings vehicle that let workers invest pre-tax dollars in the stock market through their employers. It was created almost by accident. A 1978 amendment to the tax code that benefits consultants started exploiting in ways Congress hadn't anticipated. Within 20 years, it became the dominant retirement savings vehicle for American workers. And here's the irony. The 401k gave every wage earner access to the asset escalator, the one that's been outperforming wages by 40 to 1 since 1980. The machine was handed to us, and the majority of us either don't use it, underuse it, or let it get swallowed by the lifestyle escalator before we can direct money into it. The 401k doesn't care about your credit score, your zip code, your college degree. It just compounds, slowly at first, then all at once. The escalator going down isn't inevitable. Every raise is a moment of decision. The money lands in your account, and immediately several forces compete for it. Taxes take their share automatically. Inflation quietly demands its maintenance fee. Lifestyle and social pressure knock on the door. The rare person who's actually building wealth does something different the moment a raise hits. They treat it as capital, not income. They route it before the escalator can capture it, and they do this consistently, not heroically, not with some massive lifestyle sacrifice, just mechanically, month after month, the same way the tax withholding happens automatically. They just automate the asset side with the same discipline the government applies to the tax side. Here are your 3 takeaways. 1. A raise is not a win by default. It's a raw number. The real gain, after inflation, after taxes, after bracket creep, after the hidden deductions, is almost always smaller than the headline figure. Know your real number. The person who knows their actual after everything gain is the only one who can do something useful with it. 2. The wealth gap isn't primarily about income. It's about asset ownership. Wage growth and market growth have been traveling at completely different speeds for 40 years. The only way to compete with the asset escalator is to step onto it yourself, which means directing money into capital before the lifestyle escalator captures it. There is no other path at this income level. None. 3. Automate the redirect or it won't happen. The human brain is not built to consistently route money away from visible pleasure toward invisible future compounding. It never will be. The only people who do this long-term are the ones who remove the choice. They set the 401k contribution to increase automatically. They set the brokerage transfer to run the same day as payroll. They treat investment as a fixed cost, not a discretionary one. Because the escalator never turns off. It runs every single day, taking a little and a little and a little, until suddenly you're 52 and you can't figure out where 30 years of raises went. The escalator is going down. You can feel like you're climbing and still end up at the bottom. The people who actually get ahead aren't the ones who walk faster. They're the ones who step off the escalator and take a different set of stairs, one that only goes up, quietly, without anyone else noticing, for years, until it doesn't need to be quiet anymore. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The math isn't complicated. Starting is. If you want to see exactly how to structure a portfolio strategy on a middle-class income, the specific accounts, the contribution order, the sequence, there's a video on my channel that breaks it down from scratch. No affiliate links, just math. Thanks for watching.